What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Apostolic Insight with Henry Tolbert. I'm super excited to have you here. Y'all know how we do. Before we even get started, I need you to jump in the chat. Let me know that you're rocking with me tonight. Let me know that you are here and you are watching live. Man, the feedback from you all has been amazing. Some of you have been sharing. Every week you're texting your team and you're telling them, hey, log on now, get in right now, whatever it is. Go ahead and do that. Let your people know, let your team know so that they can come in and jump in and be a part of where we are and what we're doing. All right. I see some of you are on YouTube. I see some on Facebook. I even see one on LinkedIn. All right. Love it. Wherever you're watching from, I need you to jump in and I need you to plug in because we are getting ready to jump into tonight's topics. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a blessing to you. You're going to love it because we're going to be talking about the spirit of control. The spirit of control. We're going to talk about how we are actively driving some of our best leaders away from the church. Now, this is not going to be a topic that is for the faint of heart. If you are sensitive, I want to go ahead and give you permission. You can log off right now. You can leave right now because if you are sensitive, you might be offended by some of the things I'm going to share tonight. But if you are a leader who is willing to be honest about the challenges that you face and the things that you've been through, I promise you I'm going to help you. I am never going to share anything with you with an effort to hurt you. Instead, I'm going to share it in an effort to help you to move forward and not to continue to make the mistakes of the past. It was Benjamin Franklin who said, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it, which means that if we want to do things differently, we've got to think differently. And sometimes that thinking has to come from the outside. And so tonight, I want to help be an inside voice to help you take the next step and to help you understand where we're going. All right. But I love to start with an opening statement. So I want you to get this. Some of the best leaders in your church didn't leave because they weren't called. They left because you wouldn't let them lead. All right. Let's be honest. There are some places where we as leaders struggle to allow people to lead. And if we're totally honest, we have good reason for that. There is good reason why we sometimes struggle to draw people in, bring people in, and let them have full reign to do what they're called to do. And I'm going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to share with those of you who are pastors and those of you who have pastors, I'm going to show you how micromanagers get created. Because while we often point at pastors for micromanaging, what you don't realize is that there are people in situations that have made them micromanagers. People don't often just become micromanagers because they want to. It's often because they have to, and we're going to dive into it tonight. But here's what I want to give you tonight. Tonight, I want this to serve as a sort of masterclass on micromanagement and how to overcome it. I did a video series. I've been doing a video series on TikTok. And if you're not following me there, I encourage you to go over to TikTok. I'm the Simple Systems guy. And on TikTok, I was doing this series and I did a video around this topic. And in just a matter of a few days, maybe a week, more than 30-something thousand people watched that video. I was getting, just so many comments and likes and stuff that I couldn't keep up. I still haven't responded to them all. But it really showed me that this topic hit a nerve. And so I thought I would come down and break it down some more. So before we jump in, here's what I need you to do. I need you to jump in the chat. I need you to tell me, have you ever left a church, job, or ministry because you felt like you were being micromanaged? Let me know in the chat. If that is you, have you ever left a church, left a job, or left a ministry because you were being micromanaged? All right, let's dive into this. Absolutely. What is the problem and the issue with micromanagement? Well, let's talk about it. When you micromanage somebody, it communicates. Micromanagement communicates to the people that you're dealing with. It says something very clear. Let me see if I can increase the size for you real quick. I know that probably looks a little bit small on your screen. All right. And y'all let me know in the chat. Can you see that better? Let me know if that has enlarged it significantly for you. All right. Boom. All right, there you go. All right, so let's talk about this. What does micromanagement communicate? It communicates a couple of things. Number one, micromanagement says, I don't trust you. It says, I know I gave you a job to do, but I don't fully trust you to go and execute it and get it done. That's what micromanagement communicates. So when you're constantly micromanaging somebody, you're saying, I don't think you're going to get the job done. Number two, it communicates that you're not good enough and maybe you'll never be good enough. Because even when I get clarity, I ask questions, micromanagement can communicate that to people. Now, I need you to understand this. Communication is not just about what you say, it's about what people hear. And when we talk about this, it may not be your intent to communicate these things, and yet these will be things that people are hearing as we communicate to them. Micromanagement always says, I'd rather do it myself, but because I can't, I guess I'll go ahead and let you do it. It communicates to people that they're substitutes, that they're backup plans, that they are not option A, but they're option somewhere down the line. And I'll just let you do it because I don't have anybody else. That's what micromanagement communicates to people. And the problem with that is that when you do that, people who have high capacity, they feel hemmed in. I know I've had some situations in my own life in ministry where I had greater capacity than I was allowed to operate in. And as a result, I felt frustrated because for me personally, I'm not driven by accolades, but I am driven by freedom. If you allow me to have the freedom to do what God has called me to do, I will do it with passion. I will do it at a high level. But conversely, I don't care how much you praise me from the front or from whatever. If I cannot be who God has called me to be, to me, that feels like pain. To me, to not be able to serve in the way that I'm capable of feels more difficult. And when you have high capacity people, if you try to micromanage them, they become stifled. And here's what happens when a high capacity person becomes stifled. They start pulling back. They go from the person who is constantly bringing you ideas, and they become the people who are saying, look, just tell me what you want. Just you tell me what you need. You tell me what you want, because I keep trying to bring it. I keep trying to do it. You're not letting me. So you know what? Just even if I'm going to stay here, just tell me what you want. And you don't want that, because what you're doing is when you micromanage, you are taking the teeth out of your best tigers. Oh my goodness. Somebody put that in the chat. Stop taking the teeth out of your tigers. Like you are taking the teeth out of your best tiger. And what you're doing is that you're taking these people who could go and do great things, and you're snatching their fangs out. And now all they can do is go and do the small tasks that you said before. Another thing that happens when you micromanage is that people burn out faster. You know, we forget this, man. We think burnout is physical, but I would argue that burnout is more emotional than anything else. And it's much harder to manage tasks that have to be dictated to you step by step versus have you ever stood over somebody's shoulder and tried to tell them what to do? And it's so frustrating to the point where you're like, you know what, I might as well just do it myself. Well, it feels that way on the other end as well. And so we micromanage, that's what we start to push people to. And then what also ends up happening when you micromanage is that you become a bottleneck. You become the thing that holds up progress for everything else. And so what we've got to do is that we've got to make sure that we understand what the results and what the consequences of micromanaging will be. All right. You've got to understand that. All right. I want you to tell me, somebody tell me in the chat, what happens to you? How do you feel when somebody is hovering over you? Right. You ever had somebody hover? Like they just sit over your shoulder. They always around. They walking around. They always look like, what does it feel like to you when somebody hovers? Right. What does it look like? What does it feel like when you have to go through that? I want you to share it in the chat. Let me know in the chat. What does it feel like when somebody is hovering over you? We probably get some good answers for this. This is work, ministry, whatever. Like, what does it feel like when somebody is hovering? All right. So I want you to let me know in the chat. But while you're doing that, I want to go to this next thing because I think this is important. I talked a little bit about this maybe a week or two ago, but look at the biblical principle for leadership. There's these three things that I love to harp on, and I've talked about these before. Exodus 18. Jethro tell Moses, you're going to wear yourself out and the people too. Come on, man. Don't burn out your ministry. You know, sometimes wearing yourself out is not that you quit, but it's that you lose traction. You ever deal with a screw that gets worn out, a bolt that gets worn out? When it gets worn out, it loses traction. And what happens in a lot of leaders is that if you keep on micromanaging and you wear yourself out and you wear the people out, both of y'all will still be present, but there won't be any traction. Y'all can still be there. Y'all can still be together. Y'all can still be trying, but you lose traction because that wears teeth out, right? Acts chapter 6, the apostles realize we can't do everything well. If you want to move away from an average existence, one of the things that you've got to do is that you've got to move away from trying to do everything. As a leader, you can't do everything, which is why I told you in our last episode, last week, is that some stuff, man, you just got to say, look, I can't do this right now. You just got to say no to it, right? That's Acts 6. But then Jesus, he even takes his disciples and he sends them 2 by 2. He said, I'm going to send y'all ahead of me. And that's another leadership model that you can pick up. The model of sending people ahead, grouping people together and say, okay, look, I want y'all to go put your brain on this. Go put your thought on this. Put it together. Bring it back to me. And then maybe now let's sit down and work it out together. But at least I don't have to start from scratch. And whether you realize it or not, you lose momentum when you do everything. The most exciting vision is a vision that has many hands carrying it. Man, I know the pride that I feel of sitting in a room as a pastor announces something, and I know I helped build that behind the scenes. Now it's our vision. Now I'm invested. I want to see it succeed. I want to see it thrive. Why? Because I'm invested in it. It's ours. And you got to have that. All right. And so here's one of the things you got to think about, man. If Jesus could trust disciples, why are you trusting? Why are you struggling to trust people with something as simple as announcements? With something as simple as opening the service in prayer? Why are we struggling to trust people with simple stuff? Jesus trusted these immature disciples who hadn't been with him for more than 3 years. Some of them been with him for a short period of time. And yet he sends them out 2 by 2 to go do healing and deliverance. And we struggling to trust people with simple tasks? Like, come on. Like, what's the issue? We've got to grab this. Come on, somebody. Somebody put this in the chat. Say, trust somebody. Come on, somebody trust somebody. Pastor Ed even said it. Somebody call somebody. He said that all the time. Pastor Ed Young Jr. out in Dallas. He said, somebody call somebody. Look, I'm saying somebody trust somebody. Put that in the chat. Somebody trust somebody. All right. We have got to get into it. We've got to make sure that we're doing it. And I hear what you're saying. You're saying like, no, you don't know my situation, brother. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I got going on. You don't know what's happening. Like, it's a lot of stuff happening. All right. So let me tell you this. I'm going to give you 5 reasons why pastors micromanage. I'm going to give you 5 reasons about why pastors become micromanagers. If you're a pastor, I want to speak to, and I want to give you some clarity on why you might be where you are. If you're not a pastor, I want to help you understand your pastor, right? Because I say it this way, every system has a name. Every place you see me with a system, there's somebody who made me put that system in place. All right. So let's talk about this. Why pastors micromanage. Let's talk about this. A couple of reasons. Number one. All right. Well, let me say this first. So much of what you see in pastors and leaders comes from pain, pressure, and survival. The average person doesn't understand the pain that comes along with being a pastor. The average person doesn't understand the pressure that comes along with being a senior pastor. They don't understand the survival of that comes along with being a senior pastor. I'll give you a simple one. If money is tight at the church and money is so tight that you don't know how you're going to pay the light bill, everybody who gathered at church that Sunday, go home to their house where the lights are on and go to sleep and do things like normal. And the pastor's going to go to his house where the lights are on as well, because he works full time, not because of the church, but because he works full time for the average pastor. But he's still going to be the one who's responsible. And so even when he's away, he or she is away from the church, they're still thinking about what needs to happen at the church. So let me give you some examples. All right. Number one, fear of mistakes. Pastors struggle to micromanage because of fear of mistakes. And I hear what you're saying, man. Everybody makes mistakes. True. But leadership, especially spiritual leadership, church leadership, is one of the places where somebody else can make the mistake and the senior leader be criticized for it. Think about how many times something breaks out. For example, let's say a worship leader. You find out a worship leader got some kind of sin going on. They get caught up in an issue and you find out that this is going on, or they get in a court case, they get thrown in jail, whatever it is. What do? Well, they should have known. How the pastor ain't know? Why the pastor? And it's like, man, look, y'all, some of y'all live in houses with people and you don't know everything they got going on. You live in a house with somebody and they doing stuff that you don't know about. And yet in the church, when something goes awry, we look at the pastor and we say we should have known. And so as a result, we micromanage because it's going to be your mistake, but it's going to be their criticism. That's one of the reasons that pastors micromanage, is the fear of mistakes. Is that if a mistake gets made, it's going to ultimately come back to them. If somebody in the company acts up, they don't call for the resignation of the person in the company. They call for the resignation of the CEO. They will look at you and say, you ought to resign because this happened on your watch. As a result, pastors micromanage. Now, I'm not saying it should be this way. As a matter of fact, it should not be this way. But that's what it is. Number two is the fear of loss. The fear of loss is another thing that makes pastors micromanage. One of the things that you may not realize, and I want you to get this, is that you may not realize is how many times senior leaders face betrayal in the church. You have no idea how many people have started things and quit. You have no idea how many times people have been empowered and then walked away with people and members to go start their own church without as much as having a conversation with the senior leader. You have no idea how many times a pastor has empowered somebody, loved somebody, walked with somebody, only to have a knife put in their back as soon as it was done. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you one of the things that your pastor may not tell you. One of the biggest pains of being a senior leader is that the people you help the most are the ones who betray you the most frequently. Man, almost every pastor has a story of a family that they walked through a storm with. And then after they walk through a storm with that family, it could be somebody sick, somebody in the hospital, somebody, going through a tough time, saving their marriage, rescuing one of their kids. They come out of that crisis. And not only do they leave the church, but they talk bad about the pastor on the way out for no rhyme or reason. And so when pastors have experienced enough loss, what they start doing is holding things tight. Because every time somebody picks up something and then walks away and leaves it undone, the pastor then has to step back in and carry that thing that they left. And now they got to start all the way over. And so as a result, a lot of them take to micromanaging. I'm just trying to help somebody. Come on, if I'm talking to you, can I get some? I already see some amens in the chat. Some of y'all already know. They know it becomes the same thing you go through as a person. It's the same thing a pastor goes through, where eventually you get hurt enough. You say, you know what? If I just control this, maybe I don't have to get hurt again. That happens. Maybe the church don't have to get hurt because I'm not also responsible for protecting me. I got to protect the people. If I bring the wrong person in and they hurt people on the way out, that's my responsibility because I'm the over shepherd. All right, so that's another one. Number three, another reason that pastors micromanage is pride. Pride. And I'm talking about the subtle kind of pride. I'm not talking about the arrogant pride where it's like, I'm better than y'all. I could do this better than y'all. Da, da, da. Like I'm talking about subtle pride, right? That's not this pride of I got an ego and I'm better than everybody. But this pride is a burden that feels holy, but it evolves into something that is prideful by thinking that because God has trusted me with this, it has to be me to do it. It's the subtle pride that causes us to think that we're the only one who cares about the vision that God has set forth. It's subtle pride. It's subtle pride. And again, I've seen this one happen. And this one sometimes happens. This one, I think a lot of times is more internal because, what can sometimes happen is you can sit at a table with people who are your leaders, your teams, whatever it is, and y'all talk about what we're going to do. And then you come back next week to realize nobody actually did what we said we were going to do. And so you formulate in your mind this thought that says, I'm the only one thinking about this when we walk away from this table. Because there are some people who treat church like a separate part of their lives. They pick it up when they walk in the doors and they put it down when they leave. Some people treat it that way, right? I never forget this. Years ago, I was working as a property manager, and I was the assistant manager for the dorms at Grambling State University. And when I was managing those dorms, I remember one day our manager came to me and she said, man, there's something I admire about you. I was like, what's that? She said, when you walk out this door, you have the ability. We can be in here knee deep in problems. She said, but when you walk out this door, you have the ability to put it all down and go about your life. She said, we can be in here. It could be heated. We could be mad. It could be all of that. And then when you walk out that door, you walking out of here smiling, like I'm finna go to the house, get on my grill, hang out with my family, mind my business. She was like, I can't do that. And for many senior pastors, they can't do it because ministry is not something that works on a comfortable schedule for us. Ministry is not 8 to 5. It's not only on Sundays when the church is open. It's 24/7. And so that pride creeps in because I got this burden that feels holy, but then I discover that it's not because sometimes it becomes too heavy. And that means I'm carrying too much of it myself. That's another reason. All right. Number 3, another reason, and this one is not on the screen, but I'm going to give it to you. It's insecurity. Insecurity is another reason that pastors become micromanagers. We feel the pressure to prove our value. We've got to prove why God chose us. We've got to prove why we're the right person. We've got to prove why we deserve to be in this position. And this changes depending on the circumstances that bring a pastor in, that causes a pastor to come in and to be in their role. This can change. But sometimes we feel the need to prove ourselves. And because we want to prove ourselves, we're afraid that if we let go, people might think we don't need you. And so we wear it as a badge of honor. We wear burnout like a badge of honor. Like I want, y'all, I ain't slept all week, y'all, because I was just up, and we say it because we think it's something that's worth bragging about when really and truly it's a sign that we are not walking in the fullness of what we're called to do. We're called to equip the saints for the work of ministry, not to do all the work of ministry. Insecurity. And here's the last one. I'll give you one more. Is another reason we micromanage is a lack of systems. Some leaders are just not organized enough to delegate things. You're not organized enough. Your thoughts are not organized enough. Everything is in your head and nothing is on paper. So even if if people wanted to help you and you wanted to delegate, you can't because you don't even know what to say. You don't even have anything to give to somebody. Imagine taking a job and they just telling you, hey, look, just all we want to do is this. Here's your offer, man. Just figure it out however you want to do it. Like, you got to be crazy. And some leaders don't have the tools or the processes so that they can actually hold people accountable. And that's why you don't micromanage. Everything happens in conversation and nothing happens on paper. Nothing happens in a place where you can hold it accountable. You can't. It's hard to hold a conversation accountable. How do you know they heard what you said? How do you know they understood what you said? Hey, I need you to make sure you put those chairs in the balcony. Okay, what chairs am I putting in the balcony? When do I need to put them there? Okay, I'll put them in the balcony. Now we come back next week. It's like, hey, did you put the chairs in the balcony? No, I was going to do it next week. Well, I need you to put the chairs in the balcony. Well, you didn't tell me when to put the chairs in the balcony. Right? It's just miscommunication. And a lot of it is a lack of systems. And so so many pastors, for the most part, are not micromanaging because they're tyrants. They're doing it because they've been wounded, because they've been pressured, because they've been forced into survival mode. You're in survival mode. And so what you've got to do is you got to figure out how to get out of it. You got to figure out how to get out of that survival mode and not stay stuck in it. That's what you got to do. It's okay. I know where I am now. I got to be honest about this, but I gotta switch this up. All right. So let's talk about something. I want to share something with you. So I was sitting and having a conversation with my wife last night, and she brought this idea as we were talking about this, because it was right in alignment with what I was getting ready to share. And we've got to ask ourselves, how are we positioning the people that God has called us to, or the people that he sent us? And I want to put before you two potential positions that you might be putting people in. All right. One position is the position of carrying armor. The other position is that of putting on armor. All right. And I want you to ask you, what kind of leader are you? Because as I see so many leaders, I see different leaders who fit these two categories. All right. Let's talk about it for a second. So one position, which I think is man's idea, is the position of carrying armor. It is the position whereby we treat staff, volunteers, leaders, anybody, congregation, we treat them as permanent armor bearers. The role of an armor bearer, Old Testament, right? Because you even think about, even when David and Goliath got ready to go to battle, the Bible said that I believe it took 2 men to carry Goliath's shield because it was so large, right? Well, an armor bearer was that person whose job was not necessarily to win the victory and to be an offensive weapon, but to carry the armor of that person who was actually going to go and fight. They were called to carry the armor, but they were not called to really be in the fight. All right. They were called to carry the armor and to protect the person who's going to do the fighting. Right. That's what they were going to do. But see, that's man's idea. So even when you look on screen, you see this one gentleman in tattered clothes, and he's carrying the armor for somebody else to fight. That's one approach. The other approach is that of putting on the armor, which is what Paul talks about in Ephesians chapter 6, which is to understand that as a pastor, my job is not to just equip you to carry stuff for me. My job is to equip you to get into the same fight and into the same battle that I'm in, which means that I take seriously my role of equipping the saints for the work of ministry. I take seriously my role of not having you stuck in a place where you're constantly dependent upon me, but instead putting you in a spot where you can learn how to fight. You can learn how to wear your own armor, work your own weapons, so that now we can get victory on multiple fronts. I am convinced that most churches will never be able to expand and advance because we're equipping people to carry our armor, not to wear armor of their own. Now, I know I'm talking to somebody. Somebody let me know in the chat. I know I'm talking to somebody. We cannot keep raising only armor carriers and not armor wearers. We need people who can wear the armor. And I'm here to tell you, if God messes around and sends you a real soldier, if you take a gifted soldier and you turn them into an armor bearer and not an armor wearer, they will leave and go to a place where it will be harder to fight, but they'll be willing to do it because they get to actually get in the battle. And I'm telling you, I see it all the time. I'm going to tell you one area where we're seeing it in droves in the church, especially in the Black churches, with our young people. Our young people are leaving our churches because we don't have anything significant for them to do. We don't have anything significant for them to do. And I'm telling you, you've got to change. You've got to change how you do this. You've got to change your approach, and you've got to start to prepare people to really take action and to be a part of the fight. You've got to be able to do it. You've got to be able to do it. All right. I want to ask you an honest question. Is your church building armor wearers or armor carriers? Which one are you building? Which one are you building? I want you to be honest. I know what you want, but tell me, how is your church currently set up? Is it currently set up? All right. So let me give you this. All right. I want to give you 5 styles of leadership. Right. And again, I'm not going to put all of them on screen. I've been trying to make the screen a little bit bigger so you can see it, but I'm going to give you 5 types of leadership and 5 leadership models specifically in the Black church that I see, and I want you to think about where you are and where you want to move to. All right. Number one, 5 types of leadership. Number one is the solo star. The solo star, the charismatic, everything depends on me leader. The charismatic, everything depends on me leader. The drawback and the flaw with this kind of leadership, and this is the leader who, man, they get onto a microphone, they can speak it, they can talk it, they can cast a vision, but everything comes through them. No matter what you need, you got to talk to them first. All right. The problem with this kind of leadership is that it has no succession plan. Now, I know when you think about succession, you only think about when I'm done being pastor, who's next. That's one part of succession. Another part of succession is also ministry centered. There's nobody picking it up when you can't. The worst thing in the world for a solo star is when they have something happens in their life that sits them down. That can be one of the best things and one of the worst things, because nobody knows how to do anything. And if you don't have the right people around you, you'll get stuck. So you got to be aware of that, the solo star. Another style of leader that I see a lot in the Black church is the dictator. This is the person who leads through authoritarianism. They lead by fear and control. They don't ask questions. They tell you what to do, what you're going to do. They don't need anybody else's ideas. They already know where they're going, where they're headed, what they say goes, and they built a culture where nobody questions it. All right. The problem with that is that they run from strong leaders. And a lot of times when you find a dictator always has a handful of people around them who are just like them and who can go out and do their bidding with them. But the problem with that is that they have very low trust, and it's hard for them to grow and expand, because every new person is another person that is a threat to expose who they really are and how they really lead, because new people ask questions. And so you have to make sure that you're really being really careful about that. And so the shift that you've got to make, if you're a solo star, you've got to start to share responsibility, share the stage, let other people cast vision, even though it's the same vision as your vision. If you're a dictator, you've got to start to really focus on building trust with people and empowering others. Number 3, another type I see is the rescuer. And I see this a lot in the Black church. This is the person who feel like it's their job to fix everything personally. They feel like their call as a pastor means always being available. And that's just not true. It's just not true. And what happens with this type of leadership, when you're the rescuer, part number 3, you create a dependency that's unhealthy. Everybody becomes dependent on you, and it's unhealthy. All right. Number 4, I see the parent. They treat everybody like their kids. And so since they treat people like their kids, not just in the fact that they want to do everything from them, but they try to protect people from hard stuff too much. And here's the reality. If you don't teach your people how to deal with difficult situations, you will never be able to trust them in the world. That's why several times when my young daughters come to me and they say, Daddy, can you do this? And I say, no, you can do it. Let me see you do it. Daddy, can you open this Gatorade? No, if I wasn't here, how would you open it? Because I don't need you in the world being helpless, thinking you can't do things. And I know that feels like a small thing to some people, but to me, it's a very significant thing. I need to know that you can solve problems when you're not in my presence. And so what you got to do is you got to shift to being more of a mentor. All right. You've got to shift to being more of a mentor and helping people take next steps. And so where you really want to go is to what I call the multiplier. This is the person who equips and releases leaders to go out and do what they're called to do. You want to be that kind of leader. You want to be the kind of leader who can walk in humility and patience. Know that people are going to make some mistakes, but you let them make a mistake in a safe environment, right? You let them do it in a way that works. One of the things we did here, our church just finished 21 days of prayer and fasting. And one of the things that we did is that we went from doing it, because we previously been doing it mostly with pastors or ministers. And because we know they know what they're talking about, they know what they're doing, all that kind of stuff like that. Well, we shifted to include more people in it. But to make it a safe place, we always have at least one person on there with them who is theologically and doctrinally sound enough that if somebody says something that's out of pocket, we can correct it. We can say, hey, look, I think what you were saying there, what you're trying to say there is blah, 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 blah. Right? That's so those people can talk in a safe place, right? But we're not afraid that it's going to destroy us and take us all out into places that we don't need to go. All right. And that's super important to us. All right. So you want to be the multiplier. That's really, really valuable, really, really important. You've got to be that multiplier. All right. Let's go to this next. I want to ask this question real quick. Which of these types of leadership have you seen most in your church? The solo star, the dictator, the rescuer, the parent, or the multiplier? What are you seeing? What are you seeing there? All right. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? All right. Let's keep going. All right. We're almost there. It's on the back side of my phone right here. Yep. No, don't do that one. All right. Well, just leave it then. Don't worry about it. Just leave it. All right. So let's talk about this. What's the cost of micromanagement? And then I'm going to show you a blueprint. I'm going to give you a masterclass in 5 minutes. What's the cost? The cost. Here's what happens when you micromanage. And I want you to hear this, and I want you to hear it in love, because I want you to understand what's been happening. Because you may have been trying to figure out why things going this way, that way, whatever it is. I want to help you. So hear what I'm saying. Here's what happens when you micromanage and you won't move out of it. Strong leaders exit quietly. People are going to exit. Let me tell you why and I know this is frustrating, because you're probably wondering, why did they exit quietly? I'm going to tell you why. Because when you have something that's at least good and halfway decent, people often feel like they have no right to tell you how to change what seems to be working for you. And so if it's who you are, it's what you feel called to, it's what feels best to you, a lot of times people won't challenge it because it feels like, man, who am I to tell them what to do when what they got going on is working? And so instead of becoming divisive and raising issues with the rest of your team who don't seem to see the issue, raising issues with you, they just bow out and say, you know what, look, I'm going to let y'all keep doing what y'all doing because it's working. I've done that before. Like, I get it. So they exit quietly. Here's another thing. Emerging generations disengage when you micromanage. They do. They disengage and they back away. They back away. When you say, hey, help us reach some young people, and they tell you how to do it, but then your other people who don't know nothing about young people get in the way and get in your ear and get in their ear talking about what ain't going to work and what they need to do and this and the other, it changes things. I remember years ago, I was at, when I was in college, I had just finished college, but I was helping do vacation Bible school at the church I went to while I was in college. And they partnered me to take on a teenagers class, right? But they partnered me with somebody who I guess had been doing it for years, who was a deacon who had to be in his 60s, right? And it was a good idea, but it ended up being the most awkward thing in the world, because we get in there and get to talking, and he's like, well, I'm going to start it off. I'm going to get them going, and then I'll bring you in from time to time, basically. So I'm like, all right, brother, whatever you say, I'm going to be here ready for you whenever you're ready to go. So he would get in there, he'd be talking, and them kids be sitting there like, with their head leaning back, sit back in the chair, so and so on. Like, he said, brother Tolbert, I'm going to let you share, see if you can, kind of share, blah, blah, blah. And I get to talk, and I'm speaking their language. I talk to them, blah, blah, blah. And they perk it. I'm like, hey, look, y'all seen when somebody do this? Yeah. They talking. And he's like, okay, let me come back in. So yeah, so y'all get what I'm saying now. So now what I'm saying, now he want to come back in. And what they do, they go right back. They go right back. I'm telling you, it was so awkward, right? And I'm saying to him, I'm like, listen, I said, you're saying good stuff. I'm saying, but you're so far removed from who they are. They don't understand the examples you're giving. They don't understand the stories you're telling. So it's not connecting. I said, so if you just let me flow with it, like, we could make this work because of the group we're trying to reach. And eventually he wasn't trying to hear it. And so they just disengaged. That's what happens in your church. When somebody who is an expert and gifted at what they're called to do comes to do it and you won't let them do it, they disengage. Another thing that happens when you micromanage, growth stalls, because you become the bottleneck. And all of a sudden now you're talking about, man, I got too much on my mind. I got so much going on. It's because you're not releasing stuff, right? And you become the lid on the vision. And you can blame other people as much as you want, but you become the lid on the vision. You become the place that gets where everything gets stuck. All right. So let me give you this. Let me give you the masterclass. I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. All right. So how do you stop micromanaging? All right. And again, I didn't get it all on screen, but I'm gonna give you 7 steps. All right. I want you to get this. Number 1, I want you to recognize the trap. Be honest. I want you to be honest about the fact that you are micromanaging. You got to be honest about it. All right. Look at it and say, man, I got to admit, man, I'm doing this. Matter of fact, ask people around you. Ask the people in your church, man, am I holding on to too much? Do you feel like sometimes I don't trust you? Ask them. Ask them. Ask your team. All right. That's first step. Recognize the trap of micromanagement and get honest about where you are. Number 2, you got to redefine what success looks like. Success is not always people doing it just like you. Success should be about outcomes, not always methods. Should be about outcomes. If I need to move 100 boxes from one room to another, I don't necessarily have to be caught up on how you move it. If you are the person who is committed to do it, I may want to put them on a cart and y'all push them over there and take them over there. But if you're the person who's committed to doing it, you say, no, I want to be gentle with them. I'm just going to carry them one at a time. And you commit to get it done. Sometimes I have to be okay with success for you is going to be the outcome, not necessarily the process. And success is not always how much control you have, but sometimes it's how much control you give away. All right. I've always lived by the principle that promotion is working yourself out of a job, training yourself out of a job, right? So you got to think about that. All right. Step number 3, delegate and do it with clarity, not confusion. Delegate with clarity. Give people clear expectations, timelines. Let them know exactly what you need, exactly what's coming up, and let them go and do what God has called them to do. All right. Let them know. Let them know what's going on. Right. As you can see, I put there in the example. Don't just say, hey, I want you to run this and just ask me whatever you need. Instead, say, hey, look, this is yours. You got it. I trust you. Here's what I want to see come out of it. I want you to run with it. Right? You can have more conversation around it, but delegate. Number 4, build systems instead of surveillance. Because y'all know that's what we do. We build surveillance where we should be building systems. When I build surveillance, I'm sitting here saying, I'm just going to watch this person and I'm going to see how they do and I'm going to see what they do. No. Build a system so they know clearly what to do. Use tools, checklists, reports, check-ins, databases. Use that stuff where you can monitor stuff from a dashboard. That's one of the projects I've been working on, is that I'm on the process. I'm looking for a network. I'm looking for a network of churches who wants to be the first to demo this new dashboard that we're building, which is basically where from one space, the headquarters of the network, the overseer, the executive team, whatever, they can sit in one place and they can, with the click of a few buttons, see what's happening in each individual church. Build the systems, not the surveillance. Build the system so you can see what's happening. All right. Number 5, coach it. Don't control it. Right. Don't reach over them and say, well, look, just let me do it. Let me do it. Coach it. Sit back and say, hey, look, I saw you did this. That was good. But hey, look, do it this way. You'll get more. It'll be a little bit more impactful. Coach it. Don't control it. All right. After a mistake, ask them, hey, look, okay, how did it go? What do you think went wrong? What did you learn? What would you do differently? How can I support you next time? Coaching. That's leadership, man. Coaching. All right. Number 6. Here's another rule of thumb you got to get when it comes to micromanaging. Celebrate publicly, correct privately. Hear me. Celebrate publicly, correct privately. Right. So what happens sometimes when you micromanage, you drain people of confidence. But if you become a multiplier, you actually build confidence in people. And one of the ways you do that is you celebrate them publicly. You let other people know how well they've done, because you're not just talking to the person you're celebrating, you're talking to the other people like them. Some people won't step into leadership because of how they see you treat the people who are already there. When you're criticizing and correcting people publicly, it's a sign for new people to stay away. You don't want them problems. You don't want that pressure. And so one of the things that you got to do, man, when somebody does a good job well, Make sure you celebrate them publicly. As pastors, sometimes we can be really guilty of letting people give us credit for something somebody else did. And I'm saying this is somebody who I've been good. And I had some leaders tell me this before. They said to me, yeah, we did it. You took credit for it, but it's all right. And I'm like, wait, how? Well, and it wasn't because I said I did this, but I didn't correct people when they gave me credit for it. And so if you want people to continue to work, especially in a volunteer-driven culture, if you're not going to give people money for what they did, you're not going to give them all these. The thing you could at least do is recognize them and give them credit when they do something right. All right. And then number 7, start small, build big. Don't give away your whole vision at once. Start small. Put something in people's hands. Let them prove that they can walk through it, that they can handle it, that they can do it, and then expand from there. All right. Micromanage is not just a bad habit. It's a spirit of control. I believe it's a spirit of control that comes on us when we go through some of the things that we're doing. And if you're not careful, it's driving your biggest leaders away. If you're going to go where God has called you to go, it's going to take some heavy equipment. You can't build a skyscraper with just you and a shovel. You need a cement truck to show up. You need a crane to show up. You need some people to show, 18-wheeler to show up with some lumber on it. You need all these different things. But if you keep running those people away, you're never going to be able to build the fullness of what God has for you. So you got to stop running your people away. You've got to grab this opportunity. All right. I'm going to close out. Before I close out, I want to say this. If you are a pastor leader and you know you got to take some steps, you need some help. What are you waiting on? Somebody put that in the chat for me. What are you waiting on? All right. I need you to go ahead and take a serious look at getting some help. One of the places you can get help is at the link that I just put on the screen, the Underdog Conference. Underdogconference.com is where we are going to be helping and equipping leaders in our conference coming up in October. It is for ministry and marketplace leaders, people working in ministry, people working in the marketplace, whether you're an entrepreneur, pastor, whatever it is, it's for you and your team. So I want you to go to their website, grab your ticket and share it with your team. All right. Our new website just got finished, so our pricing is about to change. And so I'm telling you, go right now. Somebody put that in the chat right now. Go tonight and go ahead and get your spot. And if you want to reserve some spots for some other people, I want you to go ahead and reserve those spots. All right. Go ahead and get your spots. Go ahead and get plugged in, because once we put up the new website in the next day or so, the pricing is going to change. And I'm actually going to be taking away some of what we offer. So it's going to be limited options. So make sure you go right now and you grab your spot and you plug in and you register for the Underdog Conference. I promise you it's going to be worth it, and it's going to be worth your time. All right, listen, y'all, I got to run tonight. I got to get out of here, but I want you to know I'm praying for you, man. I love you, and I'm excited about what God is doing, how he's been bringing us together. So if you came in a little bit late, whatever it is, take a moment, click share. Let somebody know that this is here, that we are here, and they maybe need to receive this and be a part of this as well. All right, man, look, I look forward to seeing you soon. Until next time, keep the gears turning. Peace.